Hello everyone, and welcome back to Mudlet Creek Garage. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at this 2009 Qlink Frontrunner 700. And this machine has a host of various issues, but the issue we're going to be addressing today is the fact that driving it is like driving your second generation Dodge down the road. The issue with this machine is, if you use your keen eagle eye, you can see there is a ton of slop in the steering shaft. So we're going to replace the steering shaft. For now, we're going to leave the rack and pinion because there's a little slop in that, but I might be able to just tighten that up and it doesn't look horrible. So let's get the steering shaft replaced. First step in this entire process is going to be shedding some light on the situation. Now, as you can see, somebody decided here they're going to install this custom light bar that flips down, but is still directly in the way of opening the hood. Apparently they weren't too worried about their plastics, but let's get this hood up and hope it stays and doesn't smack me in the face. No. Maybe. So first step in removing the steering shaft is going to be pulling the bolts out of both ends. So on your stock shaft, they're going to be 10 millimeters. In there tight. There. So let me get these out and we'll come back. So now that we've gotten the bolts out of both ends of the steering column, bottom and the top, we have to make a decision. Do we want to pull these four 10 millimeters here and pull the column out to allow the shaft to have room to move? Or do we want to pull the 4 bolts down here on the steering rack and drop the rack? So some people might want to drop the rack, but I've had experience doing it on razors, and I know that is a complete pain in the butt, but it's not a pain. The hardest part is getting it back in. We'll go with that. But so I'm going to pull the 4 bolts up here and we're going to go that route. I think that'll be easier for us to pull those 4 and pull the column. So a 10 millimeter on a 1/4 inch drive made easy work of that. So now that we got the steering column loose, we can move it around a little bit. Hopefully that's going to be enough play for us to slide the slip yoke down off of there. So depending on the condition of your machine and how it's been maintained, this could be miserable. But this one looks like it's covered in grease, whether that be good or bad. So at least it should come off there. So let's give it a try. Sorry, it was a little hard to get my fat hands in there with you guys watching. So we got the bottom or the top undone, and the bottom should just pick up and off. There it comes. Slide this guy out of there. Here's a step that's not really essential, but I like to do it to make sure I have the right parts. So here's the new shaft and the old shaft right next to each other. Obviously they're the same length, but here on the old shaft, you can kind of see that joint's bad. Also, if I remember right, this one's really bad. Well, they're both just bad. They're not in great shape, so we'll get the new one thrown on. It's time to put the new shaft in. So I've already taken a chisel and I kind of screwed up. I opened up the ends of these flares a little bit. Let's see if we can get it to drop down and on. Now, you can use grease here. These are already quite greasy, so I elected not to. I thought it would be a waste of grease. We have to tap this a little bit with a hammer. Let me grab one. Get it as straight as possible and just not 100% sure what my issue was the first time, but as soon as I shut the camera off, that just slid right on. Let me get a bolt in that so we make sure it's at the correct spot, and we'll start on the top up here. So now let's get this top into its home. This is gonna be hard for me to film, but I'm gonna do my best for you. So there is a slot on the bottom of this shaft that has to be oriented with the bolt here. So we're gonna line up the slot and the bolt. We're just gonna try to wiggle this together. I'm sure if I fight with it and get mad and shut the camera off, it'll go right together first try. But we're gonna try to put it together on camera. She sure is fighting me. It's going together as I'm losing all the bolts. It's gonna be fun to find. A little more. There, she's together. Let's get those bolts in. Now we just have to do the reverse process of before. We just gotta sneak my massive hand in here and get these 10mm bolts back in place. Now with our new steering shaft in, you can see, if you look at the tire and the wheel here, there is barely any play in the wheel. So I don't think we're gonna have to screw the steering box, but you may notice the wheel is about, I don't know, 90 degrees off of where it needs to be. Let's get that addressed. First step's gonna be to remove your steering wheel cover here. Just 3 little plastic push clips. And now we're gonna go at this center nut. Center nut's gonna be a 17mm. The old 3/8 impact made easy work of that. Now we just gotta tap this off here. May need to get behind it or pull up on it and tap on that center with a hammer. So let me do some tapping and we'll be back. So all I did is I threaded my nut on here all the way, not all the way, until it was just barely about the touch. I tapped on the edge of the stud while pulling forward. Wheel came right off. Then I could just back my nut off and the wheel followed. So it should have been stated before I took the wheel off, make sure your tires are pointing directly forward. Now you just put the wheel on straight. And we run our nut back on and put the cover on. There. That's how to put a new steering shaft in your Qlink Frontrunner 700. If you like what you've seen, please subscribe, and thank you for watching Mudlick Creek Garage.